Hello, my name is Molly Yanus, and today I want to talk a little bit about Smartsheet. And specifically, we're going to be talking about Smartsheet, setting up a project management office, setting up a way to roll up across multiple different projects. So, again, Molly Yanus, Echo Consulting. We do a lot of Smartsheet implementations. We're a Smartsheet partner. Today, we're going to be talking about implementing a Smartsheet project management office. And one of the things we always tell clients is we're not starting from scratch. So if you are new to Smartsheet or you've been given the task of setting up a view across multiple different projects that are going on, then what I first recommend you do is to go ahead and check out their Solution Center. If you haven't been there in a little while, you'll notice that there's a lot of new options here. And one of them just happens to be a project management office. However, there are some other ones as well: project tracking, roll up, project schedule management. So if I was doing this, I would probably go ahead and look at a couple of different examples before I chose which one I wanted to start from. So for most of them, I recommend the simple project portfolio. Today we'll look at the project management office. When I come here, it's going to give me some information about the toolkit, the solution set that they're providing you out of the box available. And you can see if you scroll down, it's going to give you some different examples of what the dashboard might look like. And oftentimes it'll also give you kind of some instructions about how to set it up. Down here, you'll see kind of some of the components that it'll have. So these are actually little dashboards, and these are some sheets and things like that. If you click on use the template, it's going to create a brand new workspace in your environment for you with all of the different components that you have. So you see it just set up this workspace. It's called Project Management Office. It has a portfolio level, portfolio being across multiple projects, and then it has a project level. So here, if I extend the project level, there's a project template. And when you copy the entire folder, it means I can create another project and another project and another project from this template. We'll do that in a second. But before we start that, I'm just going to call out some of the things that when we're working with clients, we really are providing that tailored experience specific to, you know, their specific stages, project types, their life cycle. But if you're starting from scratch, you want to try to, stay as close to the template as possible and really pick and choose what things you want to change as you get more familiar with the software. So today, we'll just kind of walk through this project management example. So again, all these little green circles are going to represent dashboards. So if I want to check out what the project dashboard looks like, it looks like I've got some, they gave me some example overdue tasks, project milestones. I've got some task statuses and things like that. They've given you some reports over here. On the project management office portfolio roll up, it looks like I can see projects by status. It looks like for these category 1, 2, and 3, I'm definitely going to have to update what those categories are. And they've given me some other options here as well. So let's kind of dig in, right? So the place that we always start with Echo is we start with the project intake sheet. This really means that what your project list is, both projects that are potential, they may or may not get approved, they may happen, or projects that we know are ongoing. And so the first thing that I do is I'm actually looking at the columns that are here, and then I'm going to kind of say, okay, do these work? Do these not work for me? So project name, this is great. This is the primary column here. And that means that if I wanted to, this is where I would be able to create a hierarchy by indenting and things like that. In a project list, for the most part, we usually keep it pretty flat. I've got a project ID column. I've got project category. I can see here that this is a drop down, but I don't have kind of what those categories are. So if I think about project category, maybe this is departments or business units or work streams or some way of compartmentalizing or filtering different types of projects. So I might actually think that this could be, for example, department. So let's just try this, or team or something like that, right? So I might say department, and then I might say, okay, categories 1, 2, and 3 are IT, finance, marketing, or something along those lines, right? I've changed the name of project category and I've kind of given values. Now, the other piece I'm looking at is it multiple values per cell or is it restricting to a list value and restricting to list value only? So if I do multiple cells, this could be that multiple different departments are participating in this project or multiple different teams are participating in this project. But if I want to just do the department that's owning it, that's sponsoring the project, then I would most likely want to only have one. So I'm going to leave this here for right now. I've changed this to department. I'm just going to get rid of this column because this row rather, because it's just kind of saying the same thing. It looks like they imported it from Excel, and when it did that, it just kind of brought this in. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that row. So here I've got the project manager, and I can kind of put those names in there for my project manager. Target start date, target end date. This is great. Project sponsor. This is a project sponsor approval, and I can see, excuse me, I can see that I have some statuses here. So I have submitted, approved, decline. Maybe I want a different one, which is, for example, um, on hold or backlog, right? Or reviewed, right? I can provide some different statuses here. Project sponsor, approval. I have a start date, end date. This is the dashboard. If I have the project dashboard link, I can put this right here. Schedule at risk, schedule status. Great. For here, this is pulling in. So this has been linked to the status, which is like the project metadata. So we'll talk about that in just a second. But it's pulling in, all of these things are pulling in right from the information within the project. So if you're setting up a new project, you would need to update that. So some of the things that I don't see here that I would typically want to see here. So the first one is oftentimes I would want to see project phase, right? So I might, or project phase, project stage, whatever you use. These are the different types of columns you have available. So whenever you can standardize, this is great. So I might do a drop-down list and I might say plan, write, build, run, or build, launch, or plan, build, implement, maybe, close, right? Like, so you can have different ones you have here. So I'm creating different project phases. Typically, I try to do project stages or project phases separate than project status. And so that's important. The other one that I sometimes do is what we call project type. So this is one, again, I typically use drop downs if I can. So for example, you might have a, I don't know, like a build new, a build, like a new building, right? New building or new vendor setup or whatever that looks like. Or you could have, let's see here, an upgrade or migration, right? I can't spell. Sorry about that. Or you might have, for example, if you were, M&A, a merger and acquisition, or you might have a um, new store setup. So there's different types, but if you have types of projects that are unique, especially ones that have kind of repeatable steps or something like that, if you have, a marketing campaign, seasonal marketing campaign or something like that, sometimes it's nice to articulate the type of project. The other thing that we often include in intake is like a project sizing concept. So whether it's effort, complexity, or anything like that. So I might do, effort or project size, maybe, right? So project size. And again, oftentimes I'll do this, right? So like small, medium, large, extra large. Okay. Now, different organizations have different sizing. I could put the information right here and say, like under 50K or something like that, right? Or under 10K would be small, and under 50K. Now, this is like using dollars, right? Or using currency to size it. But the other thing could be under 2 weeks, right? So it's less than 2 weeks of effort, less than a month, right? So there's different ways to size. You can put it in the drop down. Another thing I oftentimes recommend is that you actually add the column description. So if I wanted to put this here, I could actually say small, right? And then that means less than 2 weeks of effort, right? So I can actually put the wording here instead of requiring it to be in the drop down, which can make it harder, for categorization down the road. So how are you sizing the project? Other typical ones we might see are complexity or risk or budget. So a big piece that I'm missing in my portfolio from, again, this view of it is I don't see a budget. I don't see kind of what has been approved for the budget. I do see a start and end date, but I don't see like a duration. So there's definitely things here that I would want to see. We also have like this schedule at risk, but for most of our clients, we typically recommend a project health column. And again, for this one, we actually use the symbols. And so you can use a different symbol. Sometimes we use this one with blue, and blue is complete. Sometimes this is gray and it's complete or not started. So in this case, I'll do this here. So you can have project health. And then honestly, we oftentimes are doing project health, but we're also doing budget health, for example. And again, same concept here. You can do a symbol, budget health, and then you could do, so we're a consulting company, so we do oftentimes client satisfaction, but you can do scope health, schedule health, etc. We usually do most of these. Now, in our intake sheet, the way that we do it is we oftentimes create an automation. I prefer to create an automation from scratch, but there's plenty of different templates that you can use as well. So what they have out of the box in this this PMO office is just one workflow, right? Which is when a new row is added, request an approval of the project sponsor. So, okay, that's one. Now, if you don't want this, right, you can deactivate it or you can run it now. So I just deactivated this one, especially as I'm like getting set up and everything. I don't really like a lot of automations running in case, I haven't notified people yet that this is going to be coming. So most of the time I come into my workflows and I deactivate them to start. So you have someone here, right? So you can go ahead and do this from popular templates. You can definitely see more templates that you have. Most of the time I create from scratch. So in this case, I'm going to create one from scratch. And for this one, I'm going to do a project update. So I'm going to say a project update request for project managers, right? And so it's really important for me to make sure that I name it so that I know if I need to update it. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is saying, okay, if I want to get a project update, it means that I need the project to be in progress. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go look at project status and say I only want to request an update if it is in progress. Okay. Now, this is the trigger and this is the action and these are the conditions. So actually, what I really want to do is I want to create a trigger that is based on a date. So like I want to actually request the update every week. So I'm going to instead say, I want to do this on a weekly basis instead. And basically, the trigger is just going to be when a date is reached. So I'm going to run it every week on Thursday. It never ends. And I'm going to say, okay. And then I'm going to pick the time. And I think 10 a.m. is fine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put conditions so that only the projects that are having the right criteria are getting requests. So this is where I'm going to add the project status here. And I'm going to say, okay, if the project status is, and you see how this is not alphabetical order? This is actually the order of the columns. That's a little annoying, but here you go. So I only want to ask if the project status is in progress, right? And I'm going to request an update. and I want to request an update of a contact that is in a cell, and I want to request an update of the project manager, and I want to customize the message of what it's going to do, and I can actually say who it comes from. So oftentimes we switch this now to send from the sheet owner or send from my organization instead of just sending from Smartsheet Automation. This is a newer feature that Smartsheet has provided. So if you've done automations in the past, this is an opportunity to go back and make sure that it's coming from an email address that you actually recognize. Okay. Now, in this case, I'm just going to do a sheet owner, which just happens to be me. So it's going to come from Molly Yanus. And here, I'm going to say, weekly project status update. And I'm going to actually just have specific fields that I want them to update, right? So I don't want them to update the project name, but I'm going to have the project name as a reference for them. Um, and then I might want them to update the project phase. I might want them to update the start and end date are actually being linked in, but I'm definitely going to want them to update the project health, the budget health, the schedule at risk, some of these other columns. And project status and things like that. So another piece here, I might want them to be able to add a comment or an attachment. I might want to add additional fields so that they're not just saying green, but basically what is the project status, like provide me a very quick update, right? So anyways, I'm going to save this here. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now I've created an automation where on a weekly basis, any in-progress projects are going to get requested where the project manager can put this information in. So when I was doing that, I realized, you know what? Hey, I really want to have a project update, like a weekly project update from PM, and I want it to be a text field. So now I have this field where they can provide a weekly update, and I'm going to go ahead and go back to my automation. I'm going to come on here, I'm going to edit it, and then I'm going to add that additional field that I want to have here, which is the weekly project status update. Does that make sense? Okay. So there I go. I started with the intake sheet. I started to look at some additional things. There's a couple other things that we really like to do at Echo just so that we have an understanding of kind of what's happening. So here I have submitter and submission date. So basically when it was created and who it was created by. If I wanted to, I can go ahead and insert another column, and I have the option of having modified by and modified date. These are good columns. You can add them at any time. They're system columns, right? The only thing is that they don't really give me enough information because an automation could update it or any of the fields could be updated. And sure, I can come in here and see when this was last updated by viewing cell history. But honestly, oftentimes I want to see like when the weekly project update from the PM was actually filled out last. So one of the things that we do is we add we call it a helper column, but basically we want to know something that is modified, like when that field specifically was last modified. So here I'm going to just say, date record, because that's the automation I'm going to show you in a second. So date record for weekly project update from PM. So I've just added another column. It's going to be a date column. Okay. And for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to determine when this column of the weekly project update from the PM was last updated. So I'm going to go ahead and go to an automation. I'm going to create from, I'm going to create from scratch because I like to create from scratch. I'm going to call this date record for weekly status from PM. And I'm going to say when the weekly status, not this one, sorry, when the weekly status update changes to any value, right? Doesn't matter what it is, changes to any value. When it's triggered, I want to record a date in a date column, which is date record, okay? Now, when I do this, that means that if a PM does their weekly update and updates what is in here, right? This project status, okay? When I save this date is going to update, right? Like the date record for this is going to update. Oh, I updated this one instead. See, I by accidentally do that here. So here I'm going to go, this update was made. Okay, I'm going to save it. It is going to record that date. The reason why this is interesting is because we actually can do things really cool to highlight what status updates have actually happened and which are not recent. So here, right, like if this update was made, the date record for the weekly, it looks like it's just taking a second, which is fine. So what I like to do is I like to be able to highlight things, use conditional formatting um, to say if this is recent or if this isn't recent. So I go ahead and I go into conditional formatting and I'll add a new rule and say that if the date record is in the last, or actually is not in the last, okay, is in the last 7 days, for example. Okay. Then do this format, right? Which make it, let's say, blue. Okay. And not for the entire row, but just this field. Okay. So the reason why is because now I can see what fields, right, are updated versus ones that might be older. Okay. The other thing with this one is I can actually go ahead and update this one. So here I'm saying the date record is in the last, right? But you could also say, it's not letting me, is between, is it's in the past 7 days, but then is in the last 7 days. So as you see, because of the conditional formatting, I've now recolored the weekly project update from the PM based on the date. And so the way that the one works is in the last 7 days. Let's say that this update was, for example, earlier. See how the conditional formatting was done otherwise. One of the things that we oftentimes do is if you don't want to just do the last 7 days, you can actually use another helper column to say that it was not in the last 7 days, in which case you can highlight it orange or something like that. But that's a little bit deeper. We won't get into that today. So again, so far we've been talking about the intake sheet. I also like to look to see what they gave us so far for a form. So oftentimes there'll be a project intake form. It looks like they have done that here where they're adding some of the columns. See how I've added some new columns though, and some of the columns aren't here. So they're saying that when people submit a new project, they have to put a project name. I changed this to be department, so it automatically updated that to department. When I click on this field, I've got a couple of options. So maybe rather than a drop down, I want to go ahead and make it a vertical radio button or something along those lines. Maybe I want to go ahead and make it be an email for the project manager if I haven't already added contacts there. I can also make things required, or maybe I know that the person submitting it is not going to know who the project manager is. So I'm not going to have that here, but project sponsor, they do need to go ahead and put that information in. Now, maybe they don't know what a project sponsor is. So maybe I want to say the person that is going to be paying for this project, right? Or is responsible or something. So I can add some additional notes in here so that the person that is filling out the form for the new project, maybe they don't know what intake means, right? So it's like new project request form instead. So there's lots of different things you can do on this form. They provided you a template to get started from, but I would definitely look at some additional fields that you might want to put in here. And you can also add some other components like heading, descriptions, and other things to help. The more advanced concepts are what's called logic. And so this means that you can have different fields based on a selection. So for example, if the department is IT, then maybe you want to ask for who the IT lead is going to be or what technology or something like that. All of those would require that you add those columns in order to be able to do this. So you can actually add a column right from here. So here I might say a drop-down list, right? And I would want to say technology. And like, let's use Smartsheet, QuickBooks, you know, or SAP, right? But like some sort of technology, Salesforce, Jira, right? So here I have a list of technology. I'm going to put this down. So when the department is IT, show the following fields, and then for here I might want to go ahead and put the technology, right? And put that in there. So I need to actually put the technology field in here in order for that to show up. And so here I'm going to add logic. I'm going to go ahead and add logic. So when the department is IT, show the following fields, technology. So that means that if I don't have IT, if I click finance or marketing, it's not going to show the technology field. So same concept works, etc. But what this is called is this is logic, and this is going to show or hide fields based on the selection criteria for something else. So again, they provide you a very basic form. Definitely take a look at it. Any new columns that you need or something like that, you can update that. You can also create a different form. So you could have a form that is for marketing and a form that is for IT. I typically like to use the logic with a single form instead, because down the road it's easier to manage a single form than to be managing multiple forms. But if they really are significantly different, you're trying to keep everything in one sheet, you can certainly add additional forms. So I'm going to take a pause for today. And so far, the only thing we've actually gotten through is the intake sheet. We're going to come back with the next episode and talking a little bit more about the project management office, how to start from a template that Smartsheets provides. Today, we've been talking about project intake sheet, the project list, some of the additional columns that you may want to consider, some of the automations and things like that, and some of the ways you can use conditional formatting. So we'll go ahead and come back with another one, and we'll be talking a little bit more about dashboarding, project level, etc., how you can do it yourself for Smartsheet implementations. If you do not want to do it yourself, if you have a more complex, if you're looking to dive deeper, Echo Consulting offers Smartsheet implementations. We have flat fee implementations. We have as needed ad hoc consulting. If you have a great Smartsheet champion in-house, you're really looking to dig in. If you're considering whether Smartsheet's the right move for you or if there's another technology, Echo Consulting actually implements lots of different work management technologies, so we're happy to have a conversation. So again, Molly Yanus with Echo Consulting. I hope this was useful to you, and good luck on your Smartsheet journey. Hope to see you back on our channel. You can certainly follow. We do new videos all the time. Thanks again. Have a great day.